At the beginning of my Air Force career, in my initial training course, I was in a class with 16 other individuals. All of us were very motivated and excited to be in the Air Force, and this led to all of us being so excited and ready to go that we started having friendly competitions. One of the friendly competitions that we partook in was to see who came to school every day with the best uniform. Over the course of the 7 months that I was in school, I went through several levels of trial and error in an effort to meet and exceed Air Force Instruction 362903, which is our dress and appearance instruction. And over that 7 months and all that trial and error, I feel like I found the best way to put a crease into the Air Force battle dress uniform, or the BDU. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to do that by first explaining what supplies are required to put a great crease in your BDU, how to apply and iron on liquid starch, and also how to apply and iron on hairspray. First, I'm going to begin with the supplies required to create this kind of crease in your BDU. First supply that is going to be required is your ironing board and your iron, of course, because how else are you going to iron your BDUs? Second item that's required is going to be spray starch. I prefer the heavy starch in the can as opposed to the liquid starch that you mix. Also, you're going to want hairspray. This it's just a little bit more than the starch and adds some almost like glue to the crease in your BDU. And last but not least, you're also going to need a cotton cloth, because when you're ironing the wet starch and the wet hairspray, you don't want to put the hot iron directly on the wet BDUs, or because it'll leave a mess on your BDUs and it will also ruin your iron. Now that you know what supplies are required, let's move on to the application of the liquid starch. First things first is we're going to lay out our cotton cloth on the iron with about 10 inches in excess hanging off the side. Then we're going to take your BDU and take the side that you're going to be creasing and put it on the side with the excess cloth. Just so it's hanging right over the edge, like so. The next step is the application of the liquid starch, or of the spray starch. You're going to want to shake it up and then spray a generous amount on the entire sleeve. Not so it's caked on or anything like that, but so that it's evenly distributed and the whole sleeve is nice and wet. Alright, next we're going to flap over this excess cloth, so that way we're using it to have a separation between the iron and the BDU. You're going to run over this a couple passes. Something to note, make sure that your iron is on the highest heat level and also on the level in which steam comes out, so you want to make sure there's water in your iron as well. We're going to go a couple passes with the cloth, and as soon as we do that, then we'll remove the cloth. Now the BDU is still going to be slightly damp, but it's not going to be soaked like it was because we did use that cloth. Now we're going to take the iron and go over it one more time, just to make sure that all the wrinkles are out and the whole thing is dry. You want to make sure that the steam from the iron is what's going to dry up all the starch, and you want to make sure at this level, at this part of the process, that the starch is dry before you move on to the next step. And if you don't use the steam, it doesn't dry as quick. Alright, so now our whole sleeve has a nice coat of starch on it, and that means it's going to be nice and crisp. And now that we've completed this step, we're going to move on to the hairspray step. The hairspray step is similar. You're still going to want the excess cloth hanging from the outside on the side that the crease is, but the application process is a little different. Instead of spraying on the entire sleeve, you're just going to spread about a 2-inch line on the side of the uniform where the crease is. So, I like to do about 2 sprays per little area. So I'll go down once and come back up. Alright, so it's about 2 inches. Now, same thing as with the starch. You want to make sure and cover that up before you put the iron on it, because it really makes quite the mess. Remember the trial and error I talked about in the beginning of the speech? It definitely is a bad thing to put the iron directly on any hairspray or liquid starch. So we're going to do the same thing. Run the iron over a couple passes over the cloth, so that way it dries it up just a little. It's not going to dry it up all the way because there's not enough heat passing through the cloth, but it's going to make it enough so it's not sticky when we put the iron on it directly. Excuse me. Alright, couple passes done. Then we remove the cloth. It'll be a little sticky, but of course hairspray is a little sticky. So we flatten it out, make sure it's good to go. Then we're going to iron directly on the BDU, which is just going to, for lack of a better way to explain it, cook in the hairspray a little bit better and make it so that crease is really solid. So you want the same thing as with the starch. You want to go over it a couple times just to make sure it's nice and dry. It'll be a little harder over the stripes because it's a thicker area. It'll take a couple more passes to dry it up. Alright. Now if you repeat this same process on each side of each sleeve, you'll have a crease that is going to stay for your entire duty day. See? You can see right here. Good crease. Today I've covered the supplies required to put a good crease in your BDU, to include your starch and your hairspray, how to apply and iron both the starch and the hairspray. And if you use this method, I guarantee you that you're going to portray a professional demeanor to both civilians and your fellow military members.